Hello, and welcome, my mages, to Sage of Fables. It's been a minute, and I do apologize for everyone. I've seen a bunch of new subscribers, and thank you and welcome, and I sincerely apologize that it's been a couple months since I've released a video. Yeah, November, December, holiday time, with the conventions that I've gone to in the past couple months, it has been absolutely bonkers in these past couple of months of all of the stuff that I've been doing. I went to MTG Vegas in November, which was an absolute fucking blast. It was so unbelievably rad to be able to meet so many of you in person, which is wild. I could see you and touch you and Praetors grasp your deck and look in good taxi and probe and see your hand, reach across the table and see your hand. It was such a good time. I got to get in so many good casual and competitive decks, got to hang out with friends, eat really great food, and yeah, just like really enjoy some good times. And then with PAX Unplugged, got to meet even more of you, see a couple of familiar faces again, and my podcast Venture Maidens did a live show, which was really fun to be able to dress up in cosplay, to be able to play a game live for everyone. It had been since, D&D Live in 2019, after I graduated from college, the last time that the maidens had been brought together and to do a live, to do a recording, or to do a live game like that. And so it was an absolute blast, and yeah, just such a great time. I have finally been able to catch up on enough sleep after PAX, though, because, oh my goodness, just, there wasn't a night where I got more than 6 hours. But yeah, it was a really great way to wrap up sort of this year. And yeah, and this year has been wild. I feel like for me, this year has personally been a year of sort of self-reflection and improvement in both terms of magic and in life. Started up therapy, which has been really helpful in order to, deal with issues and stuff like that. Absolutely would recommend. If you want to try it, hit me up. I'll give you a BetterHelp thing so you can get a free week and I get a free week and we can be friends. And we can all get the therapy that we need. Not sponsored. But yeah, so this year has been a great year for Magic for me. I really feel like I have improved a lot as a player. I have played so much Magic. Because I run a casual Discord for friends. I run I'm one of the mods for Founders Club. And I have played on a fuck ton of streams, which is so cool. So thank you to everyone who invited me to be on your streams. I hope that I was a good guest. and if I was, please feel free to invite me back. Shout out to Alan and Cyrus for Mental Misplay. It's really fun, just about every other week on Saturdays to be able to play with the Chillax and Mundar crew, to be able to have, a space that I know where I can bring in new brews and see other people's cool brews and, and play some good games of Magic while getting really stoned. It is an absolute blast. Thank you to Dan, of course, Moderately Anonymous Dan, for being a great friend and inviting me to play on streams, to the Scrap Trawlers, to the Mind Sculptors for the MLC, because the MLC was this year, right? That happened this year? Time is weird. And then, of course, and thank you to the Mind Sculptors for inviting me to be a Mind Sculptor. I've gotten to Callahan and I started Nico's Angels, and come the new year, we will have more episodes of that for you. Planning the next episode is going to be about sexism in the video game industry. Oh boy, a nice light topic. But yeah, and and then starting the Path and Prophecy D&D game with I almost said Clenny, with Lenny, Clayby, Charles, and Callahan, and that will be going bi-weekly in the new year too. So lots of big projects and collaborations and lots of games of Magic, and I'm so grateful to the whole community for being so welcoming, inviting, and collaborative. It's really great to support people and be supported. So yeah, just it has been a wonderful year. And thank you to all of you who've been a part of it. Yeah. Wow. All right. I'll stop being squishy. But yeah, I really do feel like I have gotten better as a Magic player. I feel self-assured and confident enough now where I can say like, yeah, I am a good Magic player, and I would say specifically in the arena of Storm, I am a great Magic. I'm a great Storm player, and it just feels good, when I can look at my hand, look at what everyone else is doing, and formulate a plan, and then execute that plan on my turn. Yeah, it feels great. I feel like I'm at a good point, and I feel, ready and to keep on learning, and to keep pushing and to keep brewing. And what I want this video to be is to talk about the changes that I've made to my two main cEDH decks over the course of the year. It's sort of like a nice way to wrap up the year. And so without further ado, the one that we will talk about first is the Mean Jelly Bean, our four-color Lord and Savior, Omnath, Locus of Creation, red, green, white, blue for a 4/4 legendary creature elemental. When Omnath ETBs, draw a card, and has 3 landfall triggers. So for the first landfall, you get 4 life. For the second landfall, you add Wurg, red, green, white, blue to your mana pool. And the third time, Omnath does 4 damage to each opponent and each planeswalker I don't control. So for a refresher, if you're not familiar with Omnath, if you don't remember it, Omnath is a 4-color good stuff deck. Basically, what my purpose was in building this deck is to make a 4-color deck with the highest card quality possible. And to be able to layer in efficient combos into each other in order to make it easy to pivot between lines, and so that it is highly adaptable and highly explosive. And so something that's really cool that did happen this year is that I became a co-author for an Omnath list that's on the DDB that myself and Eisenhertz and Nivich all cultivate together. We all worked on card selection, putting together the primer, and stuff like that. And so this is my update for my personal list that I run of Omnath. And then the one that we have up on the DDB is the one that I would say is a great stock list. But my list is one that is a little bit more finely tuned for what I generally encounter in like the cEDH metas that I roll in. So for what we've done with Omnath is Omnath has had all of cEDH and EDH in general has had a big shakeup from a couple of things happening this year. One of them being Hullbreacher getting banned, bye-bye. And the other one being the release of Modern Horizons 2, which, oh man, had some just great cards in there. Some of which we have included in here. So for that, let's look. So out of the deck is 1, obviously, Hullbreacher, Elvish Mystic, and Crop Rotation. So Hullbreacher, 2 blue, 3/2, flash. If an opponent would draw a card except for the first one in each of their turns, they don't, and you get to make a treasure instead. Elvish Mystic and Mana Dork, which is a 1/1 for a green, and taps to add a green, and Crop Rotation, an instant for a green. You sacrifice a land as an additional cost, and you search your library for a land card and put it onto the battlefield, and then shuffle your library. So for each of these cards, Hullbreacher primarily, we'll start with. For cEDH specifically, I kind of miss Hullbreacher, which is blasphemous to some. I felt like Hullbreacher was totally fine. I think having ways to deal with massive amounts of draw in EDH, I think is really necessary, but I think, for the balance of casual, we need something a little bit different. Something between Alms Collector and Hullbreacher. There's gotta be like a nice happy medium in there. Like, maybe that's Narset, but I feel like I never see her. I feel like we should see more of Narset. I really feel like the flash is the really egregious part. And then the treasure is just so good. Yeah, maybe Narset is the happy place between that. But alright, so, I mean, the one reason I'm glad that Hull Breacher's gone is I no longer have to write in primers or talk about in videos about, oh, this gets around Hull Breacher. Um, so, I mean, by Hull Breacher, we hardly knew ye. And in place of that, I immediately put with Imperial Recruiter. One, it hits that 3 mana slot for creatures. That is a very nice point in this deck, because 3 CMC creatures, or 3 mana value creatures, they neoform us into MEL, which is very notable, very important. Yes, to be able to... So Imperial Recruiter is really exceptional, because for one, it gets us one half of our MEL Dockside combo, and then neoforms into the other half of it. So Imperial Recruiter, a creature for 2 and a red, a 1/1. When an ETB, search your library for a creature card with power 2 or less, put it into your hand, then shuffle your library. So Imperial Recruiter is an absolute powerhouse. It gets... The only creatures that it cannot fetch in this deck are MEL, the Blessed, and Deadeye Navigator. But it does get a lot of great utility otherwise. It gets us Vexing Shusher when we need protection. It gets us Dockside, obviously. And it also gets Dryad Arbor, which is notable, which is part of the reason why I'm cutting out Crop Rotation. With Crop Rotation, the 2 main targets in the deck are, or targets of note anyway, are Dryad Arbor and Gaia's Cradle. Crop Rotation is a little bit too narrow of a tutor. I really felt like, because, you know, it's nice that it's an instant. But yeah, I wanted another tutor who could get me more things and have more flexibility than what Crop Rotation was getting. Because, you know, the deck wins pretty consistently around turn 4. And by that point, like, Gaia's Cradle is really not doing a lot for us, most likely. It'll, like, tap for 2 or 3, which is good, but it's certainly nothing to write home about, especially when our commander gives us 4 mana for when we play and crack a fetch. And with that, and with Elvish Mystic coming out, this deck does not have a problem creating mana. This deck is hugely explosive, considering we get such a huge mana advantage from our commander in the command zone. And we have a number of dorks, and because of the color distribution moving a little bit away from green and more towards other colors, I also wanted to take out, you know, a dork that just tapped for green in order to have something that's, you know, a little bit more flexible. So mana is not a problem in this deck. What we did need is more quality tutors and more card draw. So Imperial Recruiter brings in a very quality tutor for us, and then with card draw we have Esper Sentinel, a white human soldier, a 1/1 for 1 white mana. Whenever an opponent casts their first non-creature spell each turn, draw a card unless they pay X, where X is Esper Sentinel's power. I very rarely have someone pay for Esper Sentinel's trigger. You just draw buttloads of cards with this card. It has been very, very good. I'm a big fan of Esper Sentinel. It's definitely another nice card draw piece that this deck needed, and really, really helps smooth out the deck's power and ensure that you can keep pushing with interaction, or keep drawing into more things. Keep drawing into win cons or to more lands. It's just been absolutely exceptional. And as a 1 mana, it neoforms into Dockside which is very nice. So, like, if you've already gotten your trigger for the turn off of your Esper Sentinel for someone casting something on your turn, cash it in. It can also get a Vexing Shusher or Grand Abolisher in order, so once you get your 1 card draw, you get in that one nice piece to make sure that people do not interact with you for the rest of the turn. And Eldritch Evolution, getting up to 3, gets us Imperial Recruiter, gets us Ewit, who can buy us back things from our graveyard, or can get other important 1-drops like Allosaurus Shepherd to make sure our stuff is uncounterable. Just really great utility, fills in very nicely with our creature suite. And then our last creature that we're adding in is Dragon's Rage Channeler. Darcy, I love you. This card is so good. I honestly think that this card goes in just about any deck with red. It is just, oof. So 1 red mana for a Dragon's Rage Channeler, a 1/1 human shaman, and whenever you cast a non-creature spell, surveil 1, so you can look at the top card, and you can either decide to leave it there or put it into your graveyard. And then it has Delirium. As long as there are 3 or more card types in your graveyard, Darcy gets +2/+2 and has Flying and Haste and must attack each combat if able. So, with Darcy, because this deck does run a lot of interaction, every time you counter something, you remove a creature. To be able to filter your draws is hugely beneficial. And sometimes occasionally I run into this deck is not having quite a big enough graveyard for Underworld Breach in order to really go off. And so having a Dragon's Rage Channeler in play helps us fill that yard easily. So it just completely fixes that issue. I have been really, really impressed with this card. This year I built Elsha Control, and Dragon's Rage Channeler has been an absolute all-star because, you cast something off the top with Elsha, a counter spell, and then you have your Darcy trigger to be able to make sure that there is another piece of interaction on top, or can filter to the Sensei's Divining Top in order to win. It has just been extraordinary. Big fan of this card. Oh my god, and Bergie too. I love this card. I love this card so much. But that's pretty much it for Omnath. I've other kind of changes that I've made is I've fine-tuned the mana base. So there's definitely much more to reflect the fact that we're moving a little bit so heavily away from green and blue and moving in a little bit to more red and white as well. So updates in the mana base to show those changes, and then just fine-tune a couple of little interaction spells like making sure that I have Silence and Horribly Awry, which shout out to Horribly Awry, Sage Tech. There are so many creatures that when they come down, they take over a game. And to be able with Horribly Awry to counter something and then exile it instead of going to the graveyard for any creature CMC 4 or less is just huge. Absolutely stops people in their tracks, and to be able to prevent people from now reanimating the Dockside in their graveyard or whatever is it's so good. And I think especially too with at least in my experience with stacks becoming much more prevalent, to be able to hit those stacks creatures is just so important. And because while this deck can win under stacks, it makes it much harder and much slower. Because especially with the Rule of Law, we can win with the Rule of Law in play, but we have to go, turn 1 Dockside. The next turn, play Emiel or Deadeye, and then we have to have Omnath in play, and then we can win. So it's possible, but it'd be a heck of a lot easier if we didn't have the Rule of Law in play. But yeah, that pretty much sums it up for Omnath, which brings us to Valki, God of Lies / Tibalt Cosmic Imposter, my Rakdos Turbo Adnas Storm deck. A deck that I truly, truly love. I love both of my children, but but this is a deck that I have really, really enjoyed playing recently. And I feel like I've finally tuned it to a point where it really just sings now. And so, as a reminder, the front half of Valki is a 2/1 creature for 1 and a black, a god. And when Valki enters the battlefield, each opponent reveals their hand, and for each opponent, you exile a creature from their hand for as long as Valki remains on the battlefield. And then Valki has an activated ability. You pay X mana, where X is the creature's CMC, and Valki becomes a copy of that card. And then on the back, the very exciting back half is 5 black-red for a 5 loyalty planeswalker. When Tibalt Cosmic Imposter enters the battlefield, you get an emblem with you may play cards that are exiled with Tibalt Cosmic Imposter. And you can spend mana as though we're mana of any type to cast those spells. And then +2, exile the top card of each player's library. -3, exile target artifact or creature. And -8, exile all cards from all graveyards. Add red, red, red to your mana pool. So yeah, so like I said, this is a turbo deck. It's a storm deck. It's looking to leverage big cards like Adnaz and Peer into the Abyss in order to do a great big heckin' storm play. And so what the big changes that I've done have come from from words. Words are so hard. So I submitted my Tibalt deck to the DDB. I've done it twice, and both got rejected twice. We've done it a third time. Maybe third time's a charm now that we've made these changes. But the feedback that I got from the second time, which was really great to learn that you could ask for feedback why it got rejected, was that the red mana cantrips should be taken out, and that Stitcher Supplier Blasting Station should really be put in. And I fussed, and I said, fine. And I did, and it was better. And I'm kind of mad about it, but whatever. It's good to be able to accept feedback. So that's predominantly the big change that we made. Is I took out pretty much all of the red mana cantrips except for one, Overmaster. Overmaster being a 1 red mana sorcery, which says the next instant or sorcery you cast this turn cannot be countered. Draw a card. So that card is really great utility on its own, but all of the rest of them were really just there in order to, feed into Bergie in order to sort of manually storm off. So I got the recommendation that I should take those out because it's just a little bit too cute with Bergie. As sort of like a Bergie secret commander for this deck. And so in place, I decided to put in more high quality cards into this deck in order to sort of help shore up some of our weaknesses that we have, and to also continue to play into the great strength of this deck, which is ripping stuff off of the top of our opponent's libraries, or utilizing their really high quality cards in order to fuel our plan. So the big change is, or another wink on that we're adding is Citrus Supplier and Blasting Station. And this goes in really nicely with Underworld Breach. And the utility that I have, or sort of the upside that I really enjoy about the combination of these two cards, is that you don't have to refuel your opponent's hands every time you do LED and cast Wheel of Fortune, because that gives such a bigger likelihood that they're going to be able to, if they draw into the Force of Negation and hit the LED with that, well, now all of a sudden you're kind of shit out of luck. And so being able with Stitcher Supplier to just mill your cards is, hugely beneficial to, make sure that if your opponents are stuck on hands where they cannot interact, you're not going to, get them into more interaction. And so that's really nice. I don't think I've gotten to win this way yet. But Stitcher Supplying just going in there to fuel for Breach in the early game is really nice. Because especially if Tibalt does uptick, Tibalt only needs to uptick twice in order for the third turn to be able to exile all cards from all graveyards, and then you'll be able to play those. So be able to fuel those cards into a Tibalt ult is really nice. Also, yeah, just kind of filling up with Breach is really good. And then also, who did I take out? I think I did take out, I think I have Past in Flames still in there, but I did take out Mizzix's Master, I believe. Because 8 mana is a lot. 8 red is a lot. But yeah, so Stitcher Supplier has been good. Like that card. Big fan. And also, it's really nice to be able to sack to things, like our Infernal Plunges, all of our rituals that require a creature sacrifice, or tutors that require a creature sacrifice. Really great. And our other big one, so Bolus of Citadel. Bolus of Citadel was a card that I kind of put off putting in, but I was already running Sensei's Divining Top and Aetherflux Reservoir, And I was like, you know what? Let's just throw it in and try it. It sucks that it's 6 CMC, but I think it'll be worth it. And it really has earned its spot. To be able to give us access to another way where we can churn through our deck in order to keep casting spells while we're trying to go off and win, because I mean that's the thing with storm decks is you have to pick your time. And you have to do it on one turn. Final Fortune does help get around with that. But after you're so many spells, after you're five spells deep in a turn, going to your next turn is probably not going to help you. So Bolus the Citadel gives us another avenue between our hand, our graveyard, and now our library in order to ensure that we can get to our win cons. And it does raise our average CMC, which makes our nods a little bit worse, but the payoff that we get instead is just absolutely worth it, because it just, you just pay your life and you just turn through spells. I'm really, really glad that I put it in here. It's definitely a mainstay for sure. And yeah, big love on this card. And then our two exciting cards that we got from Modern Horizons 2 are Ragavan Nimble Pilferer and Dothi Voidwalker. Ragavan being our 1 red mana monkey, who is a 2/1, and when he deals combat damage to a player, you get to make a treasure, and you exile the top card of that player's library, and until end of turn you may cast that card, and he has a dash cost for 1 and a red. So Ragavan, since this deck is built towards being able to pull stuff off the top of our opponent's libraries, Ragavan fits perfectly right in with that. So good. To be able to give us more cards off the top that we can cast, that that we can leverage, that we can deny to our opponents, is worth it. The disruption factor is definitely noticeable, because even if you just rip it off the top and leave it there, that's a resource that you are denying to your opponents. So love the sweet monkey boy. And when the board gets gummed up with blockers and stuff like that, we sack him for stuff later, which is perfect. And then Dothi Voidwalker, black for a 3/2, Dothi Rogue with Shadow. And if a card would be put into an opponent's graveyard from anywhere, exile it instead with the void counter on it, and then tap sacrifice Dothi Voidwalker. You can choose an exile card with the void counter, and you may cast it without paying its mana cost. So Dothi Voidwalker is, what a good boy. First of all, the graveyard hate from this card is so good, so clutch. To be able to shut off other opponents' breach lines, because breach has been everywhere these days. Even more so than Thoracle, which I love. I love me some breach. But to be able to shut off that avenue and to basically get something for free from our opponents is just so good. It is exactly what this deck wants. And yeah, man. These are, I'm trying to think. Yeah, these are the big changes that we've made to the deck. Also including another piece of interaction of Feed the Swarm, a sorcery for 1 and a black. Destroy target creature or an opponent controls, and then you lose life equal to that, to the creature's and enchantment's converted mana cost. Putting that in has been absolutely vital, because we are a storm deck. We are looking to cast things from multiple parts that's not just our hand. So being able to deal with Drannith Magistrates, with Rule of Laws, with all these sort of things that sort of shut us down is a very important piece of interaction, and at 2 mana even is just the right cost. And even though it is sorcery speed, I mean, we're a storm deck, we win on our turn. And so that is not really a downside for us. This deck has been doing really well. I think out of the past 10 games that I've played with it, I've won 7 of them. And I attribute that to these changes and to my improvement of as a pilot. So I will include the deck list links in the description below, and for you all to check out and see Yeah, what's sort of changed, what's new, what's different, and I encourage you all to pick up and try these decks. They are a ton of fun. They're very versatile. And if you do, and if you have any questions, like honestly, hit me up on Twitter, on Instagram, on Discord, whatevers. Yeah, I'm so happy to talk about Magic all of the time. And yeah, so I think that pretty much that wraps up my big changes for those two decks. And coming up in the new year, I'll do a deck tech for my Elsha control list, so you can all see that. Runs definitely cards like Dragon's Rage Channeler and everything, because hey, turns out Darcy is really good with Counterbalance and Elsha and stuff like that. So expect to see a deck tech coming for that soon. Plus some more for casual decks that I've played and brewed and have had a ton of fun playing. And let's see. I guess for people who might be wondering, I did not put Ragavan and Omnath. In my Omnath list personally, it's not built to be able to rip things off the top. And because I find that few other decks have such creature-focused strategies, and if they do, they tend to be Winota or Stax decks. And those aren't... And while, the disruption from Ragavan to exile them, even if we're just leaving them there, is good, but it's not what the deck wants to be doing. So I did not put Ragavan in there. I don't miss it. It was in there for a couple weeks, but I was just really just not impressed for how it worked within the deck. It's much, much better, in Tibalt and Bergie. Bergie definitely got a Ragavan. Because unfortunately, when I opened up a Modern Horizons 2 box, we opened 2 of them, which is super nice. One of the extended art, alternate art one, and then a foil one. Ooh! Oh man, a great blessing. So since Omnath is not really a storm deck, I've just Ragavan did not fit well in there. But yeah, that's it. I think that's the business. Yeah. I look forward to making more videos for all of you in the future coming up in the new year. I think I've finally figured out a content creation schedule where I can release videos more regularly, at least once a month, shooting for bi-weekly. We'll see. But yes, in the meantime, I hope you all have a wonderful, wonderful holiday, wonderful new year. And follow me at Staff of Sage on Twitter, Instagram, Moxfield to see what I'm up to, see what the projects that I'm working on every single week. And that's it. I hope you all have a wonderful end of the year, and I hope that 2022 brings you great joy and new, big, wonderful surprises. Catch you all next time, folks.